Okay, let's use what we learned in the last video to do some problems. And let me encourage you, as we do these problems on this video, to pause your video and try to do the problems yourself. And then just use my explanations to check your work. So use the a plus delta x method to show the slope formula if a equals 2 and delta x equals 3. So of course you want to take a second and write that into your notes, and then pause the video and try to solve it. So we want to use the f of a plus delta x minus f of a over delta x. That's going to equal a plus delta x is 5, so f of 5 minus f of a, which is 2, over delta x is 3. And you're done. Okay, we don't know, we weren't given what the value of f of 5 is, what the value of f of 2 was, so we don't really have a way of finding the value. I might ask you to sketch a graph of that, and you really could have a lot of freedom. So a is 2, and b is a plus delta x, so b is 5. Let's get that over in case you can't see it. And that's really all we know. So you could draw any line you want here. You could even have a negative slope. And you would want to label that this is f of a and this is f of b. Now, is it okay that f of a is above f of b? It is. That's what's going to give us actually a negative slope in this case. Okay, so let's look at number 2. If a equals negative, or use the a plus delta x method to show the slope formula for if a equals negative 5 and delta x equals 3. So pause the camera and try that on your own. And again, you'd want to write out the formula. F equals a, or slope equals okay, what is a plus delta x? Would be f of negative 2 minus f of a over delta x, which is 3. And if you were to draw a representation of that in a graph, a would be negative 5, b we figured out would be negative 2, and depending which way you drew your line, we could have, again, if we had a negative slope, oops, I don't know why I do that there. So there's our line, and this would be f of a, and this would be f of b. Okay, and that's f of a because it corresponds to the a value, and that's f of b because it corresponds to the b value. Okay, and I wouldn't have had to draw this with a negative slope. I could have drawn it like this. Negative 5, negative 2, say I put a point here, point here. Now where's f of a? F of a is here, f of b is here. Okay, because a corresponds with a and b corresponds with b. Okay, number 3. Same question. Use the a plus delta x method to show the slope formula. So Actually on number 3, I think we can find the slope also. So let's see what we have. F equals a plus delta x. I want you to write this formula as often as I'm writing it, over change in x. So a is -1, delta x is 4. So we have f of 2. Oops, no, I'm sorry, f of 3. Right? Minus f of a, which would be f of -1, over delta x, change in x is 4. And actually we have some values here, don't we? F of a equals 3. So we could actually fill in, right? So it's going to be a -3. What else do we know? F of b equals -8. Well, this is f of b, isn't it? Sorry, I did that again. So I'm go back. F of a is 3. F of b is -8. So this is f of b. This is f of b. So this is f of b. And we have delta x is 4. So in this case, we actually can find our answer. -11 over 4. In this case, we could also draw an accurate graph, because we have, I believe, all the information. So a was -1. B is just a plus delta x. So -1 plus 4 is 3. And they told us that f of a is 3. So that's f of a. And f of b is -8. Right, so that's f of b, -8. And our slope is -11/4, so we should have a down line. And there we have it. Okay, this is a good time to stop and remember that all we did was we just found the slope. Right? So if we back up a step and we say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we get the same thing. So what's y2? -8. What's y1? 3. x2? 3. x1? -1 equals -11 over 4. I hope you could see that. So it's the same thing. And the y2 minus y1 corresponds exactly to things in our equation. y2, the second y value, corresponds to f of a plus delta x. It's exactly the same. y1, that's just f of a, right? y1. x2, that's easy, that's the second x value. Well, if we know the first x value and we know the way it changes, we can find the second x value, no problem. Then x1 is usually what we were given. Okay? And if that doesn't make sense to you, maybe stop and play around with it a little bit, work it out in your head as to how these two formulas are exactly the same. Okay, number 4. Number 4 gives us a graph, and it says, what is delta x? So let's look at the graph and see if we can find it. Delta x is the change in x. So I might even ask you to label delta x on the graph. So you could label delta x like that. And what is delta x? In this case, delta x equals 6. What is delta y? I might ask you to label that on a graph. Delta y is the change in y. in this case, how much is this changing? And you can do the math if you want, but if you're going from -4 to +6, isn't y changing by 10? Okay. And then show the slope formula 4 ways. So, what are the 4 ways we know how to do? I'll start with the simple one. The change in y over the change in x. And that's going to equal 10 over 6. And you could simplify it, would equal 5 over 3. Okay, what's another way we can show the slope formula? So we'll do that one way. How about y2 minus y1? Oops, I don't know why I did those as exponents. y2 minus y1, or x2 minus x1. So y2 is 6, y1 is -4, x2 is 11, x1 is 5. So again we get 10/6, which is 5/3. And let's see, a third way would be, this is an important one, f of b minus f of a over b minus a. So what is f of b? Well, here's our b value. F of b, well actually let's go ahead and write this as f of 11, right, because that's f of b, minus f of 5 over, let's see, b minus a, 11 minus 5. So what is f of 11? F of 11 is 6 minus f of 5, which is -4, over 11 minus 5 is 6. We get 10/6 again, which still reduces to 5/3. And a fourth way would be f of a plus delta x minus f of a over b minus a. Let's look at this graph. What is a plus delta x? That would be f of a plus delta x, which was 6, minus f of a, so f of a, f of 5, over b minus a, or I guess I probably should have put delta x there, huh? So delta x, which is 6. Sorry, that was an error, so that should have been delta x. Okay, so again we have f of 11 minus f of 5 over 6. What is f of 11? Well, f of 11 corresponds with 6. What is f of 5? -4 over 6. Still equals 10/6, still equals 5/3. Okay, that is it. We will be having a quiz on Wednesday when you get to class, so make sure you bring your notes.